Welcome to the recap of, I don't know, what is the reach? I couldn't keep going with the Count Chocula.
Welcome.
Welcome.
I don't know if you laughed.
We went to the conference 2024.
I have no notes to crib here. We're just going to go from memory. I think.
Yeah, we're going to riff it. Lots of driving, or at least for me. Why is it always? Why always driving? At every conference, I'm always driving.
Why do I make these decisions?
Yeah. You're like, hey, it might be cheaper for you to fly to the conference. Okay. Well, I'll rent a car and drive.
Yeah. Well,
Although,
so it was like 7-hour drive from you?
it was, let's just call it 7.5, 8. I didn't have to drive a lot. And actually it was good because I had a co-pilot with me, another fellow Michigander architect and friend of the show.
And podcaster.
Yeah. And
who owes me coffee.
That still owes you coffee. So he doesn't even get a name shout out because he still owes you coffee.
Withholding.
You ain't got no name, coffee boy. So,
ouch.
But it was actually good.
That'll teach him.
And it was a good conversation just about architecture, state of the just things going on, all these kind of things, and gossips and rumors and all sorts of fun stuff. And it kind of helped the trip go by.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Did a couple of, he did some work, and I kept glancing over at him while he's trying to do work in the car and looking at the kind of archaic ways that he's doing. And it's just like, oh, I'm having to renumber all of these PDFs. And he's doing it one by one. I'm like, what are you doing? It's like, there are tools out there.
Did you have a lesson? Did you teach a lesson?
I actually told him, I actually really told him, I was like, don't make me pull this car over and teach you how to do this in 1 second. Well,
I'm sure that would have been appreciated.
It would have if he had the right tools. He didn't have the right tools on his computer, so it just paid me to watch, to glance over and say, why?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the state of the industry. Everybody has just got to figure it out on their own, and they don't know what they don't know. So.
Hey, I'm going to project manage by Excel.
Yeah.
You're like,
exactly.
Why would you do that? But people still do.
People do. Yeah.
But
okay, so you drove, I flew, and it was longer for me to get there than for you.
You had a much longer time on your trip out.
Yeah.
I think didn't you fly like Beaver Air or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, maybe the state. What is the state critter of Alaska? I don't even know. I flew Alaska Airlines.
But you had to get like a biplane from your local.
Right.
You had to fly back in time to get the Wright brothers to fly you from that one to.
It was a crop duster. Yeah,
exactly.
Crop duster.
Actually, so you flew from your local to Seattle, right?
Yes.
And then Seattle to DC.
Yep.
So was it longer to get from your local to Seattle than it was from Seattle to DC?
Oh, boy, were my arms tired. Yeah. No, super short to Seattle, and then beautiful. It was just beautiful up there, and then flying. I just worked the whole way, so I mean that is one benefit to being a passenger, right, and not being behind the wheel of a car. I didn't get to talk to anybody though. I mean, I was editing videos and stuff on the airplane the whole time, but.
Why can't people just stop and relax a little bit? Why does everything have to be up? Ooh, look, it's an opportunity to work.
I did that on the way back. So because I was literally missing time working. I was missing time working. I had to get some stuff done so that as soon as I got back, I could publish it. But yeah, on the way back, because I left super early, which you were gracious to take Brett and I to the airport.
I'm familiar.
Man,
I'm familiar with how early you left.
Yeah, I know you are. And then I didn't hardly get anything done on the way back. I tried to sleep, and I just tried to look out the window as much as I could and see what I was. Flew right over Yellowstone. Actually saw Yellowstone. What do they call the falls there? I mean, it's like they call it like the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. It's just, I guess it's Yellowstone Falls. There's like an upper and a lower, but it was raging and it was gorgeous. So that was pretty cool to see.
That's cool. I wish.
Yeah.
Haven't been.
So I got back into Seattle on the way home, and I didn't realize it. You know, there's time changes and like 3 hours difference, right? So my phone hadn't updated yet, and they come on after we landed. The pilot comes on the intercom and he says, "Well, they're making us wait here to get to a gate, and to add, we're already half an hour late. To add insult to injury, they're going to make us wait." And I'm like, "What? We're half an hour late? Like we took off on time. We did not take off late. So for some reason, it was a slower flight than they were expecting." And then I was just like, okay, from Seattle to Medford, how many flights a day are there? There's 2. One of them at the time that was literally like 30 minutes away from us landing now. And then the other one was 12 hours later. And I was like, I do not want to spend 12 hours in the airport today. That would be horrible. So anyway, somehow it all worked out. I don't know how, but I made it back on the right flight at the right time. And it was great because when I got home, it wasn't even 1 p.m. yet, because when you travel back in time, when you're going east to west, and that's actually really nice. I always like going this direction. I don't like going that direction. I don't like going over there.
I stayed in the same time zone from DC to Detroit. However, the times that I kept, like, okay, if we leave here, I'll get back in this time. If we leave this time, we'll do this. People are like, oh, but this person wants to do that. Well, all of that was out the window, because on our way back, I was kind of scrolling through Facebook, and one of our friends that we met up with on the trip, Scott Thrift, he gets a name.
He gets a call out.
Coffee Boy does not. which was also with me, and which was also rode back with me, but still no name.
Right.
But anyway, so he had posted, "Happy birthday, Frank Lloyd Wright." And I think I had mentioned to you or to a couple of other people, and another friend of ours suggested to take you out to the Pope Leahy house. And I was just this would be kind of cool. Let's go celebrate Frank Lloyd Wright's birthday. Let's go out to
on his birthday.
On his birthday, cool. Let's go out and visit. And so I check, and so I reached out to a couple of people and said, "Hey, are you interested in just kind of doing a real quick drive-by to the Pope Leahy house?" They're like, "Oh yeah, that'd be great. Let me check my time, this, that, and the other." So it didn't really turn into a big thing. I took 2 people out there, Coffee Boy and Scott. Mm-hmm. I'm going to keep driving that home. But,
right.
But I was just like, well, I went online to see if I can get tickets for a tour, but it says it's sold out. It wasn't sold out, but they were having a birthday event. And so when we get there, they're like, "Oh, are you here for the birthday event?" And we're like, no, we were just kind of doing a drive-by to go take a look at it.
I'm shaking my head like, yeah, we're here for the birthday event.
We should have. Well, but they were like, and I was like, I didn't know that. I went online and saw that all the tickets, we blocked them out. And if you want, just go up to the main house and you can get some tickets. The tickets are available. It was just kind of a walk up. And so we were like, okay, that's great. And so we went up there, and they're like, oh, and we're having a Frank Lloyd Wright celebration. There'll be cake and all this other stuff. I'm like, cake? A tour and cake? Awesome.
Wow.
And this was the house
Sweet.
that every time I've gone there, which this is now the 4th or 5th time. I'm still kind of debating, because my wife couldn't remember if we went to like my own drive-bys, and then she keeps saying that we went 3 times with her just because. So we go there, and of all of the times you can't take interior photographs, and all of the times I've paid for tickets. So I go up there, and I'm looking at the ticket prices and all that other stuff, and I'm like, oh, cool. And then they say, well, active duty military is free. I'm like, active duty military, is it also open to veterans, or is there a veterans discount or anything like that? And they're like, no, it's just active duty. And they're like, wait. And then she like pulls out a piece of paper, looks at it. She's like, oh, no, it's for veterans too. And they were like, so 0 charge. And then I'm waiting for Scott and other person. Now he's going to be your other person to, it's just like, well, how much for them? And they're like, oh, no, it's veteran and party. And so like I get them in for free. So
nice.
So, it just saved everybody. I think it was like 45. It would have been $45. And so I just saved everybody $45 to do that.
Not bad.
Could they have like purchased something for me at the gift shop as a thank you gift? They could have. Did they? No. But actually what was great.
Put your ticket money into my hat.
Exactly. But what was great is it was a great event. They've really done nice work in the restoration of this, and there's just ongoing restoration. The docents were amazing, chock full of information. What was interesting is the house that I don't know if I've said it on the recording, but that I kind of I got a private tour of a Frank Lloyd Wright house.
Right. I think you did talk about that.
Basically the Sunday before I left for the conference.
Oh, right.
And the Pope Leahy house and the Ghosh Winkler house, and if I'm pronouncing at least the first name wrong, probably, they're like basically in the series of Usonians, they're right next to each other. So the Ghosh Winkler house had come first, or at least was built first, and then the Pope Leahy house. So there's a lot of, they're twins, the Usonian twins, I guess. And it was really interesting to see those, and because I had this private tour, and it's a private owner, and they're trying to do a lot of research on the restoration process and working with the Conservancy and all of these other things. Here I am, if I'm allowed to take pictures, I'm going to start taking pictures for this guy and taking all of this like precedent images, like, ooh, they did you just opened up your corner windows, and they've got like the corner doors that form a corner, and there was missing weather on his doors. There's missing weather stripping and sill, like the threshold and all of this other stuff. And so I was taking pictures of the threshold and the weather stripping and all that other stuff to send to him and say, hey, this is what yours is supposed to look like. So it was kind of cool working. So I guess in a way, paying it forward, this guy like gave me a free tour. So, I reimburse him by taking pictures of details and stuff, but everybody had a great time.
Nice.
And so here it is, like the leave time is getting further and further away. Here I was supposed to leave 4 hours earlier, and here I am 4 hours into it. And then I just kind of I glanced over and, Scott, so how like he, the stuff that he posts and the interest that he has about like military, Americana and Frank Lloyd Wright and all of this other stuff. So I was just like, you know what? We are 6 minutes away from the National Museum of the U.S. Army. So I was like, you know what? Let's go there.
Let's extend this trip even longer.
Let's extend this trip. So here I am. I was shooting to leave between 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and when everything was said and done, we left at 6 p.m. and got back at 2 a.m., which was just 2 hours away from being awake for 24 hours, because you guys woke me up at 4 a.m. to take you to the airport to Dallas. So, and here we are. We're starting our recap of the AIA convention on the last day.
We haven't even talked about it. We haven't even. We haven't even talked about all of this that we've talked about is just getting there and getting back.
Exactly. And not the actual event itself.
We haven't even talked about. So the event itself, we'll just spend 5 minutes on that, right?
Yeah,
because the good stuff happens before and after the conference, obviously.
Yeah, because I do have another good story. Although it was at the convention. You've heard this. Right. You know this story. But go
ahead.
No, I want you to go with your chronology first, and then, because mine was, I think, What was
Yeah,
it?
a little different. I
Day
because
two.
I spent the first day. I spent the
PM.
first day in the technology and architecture practice symposium,
Node.
and yeah, so me and 200 other people, people who actually make the practice work. Cormac.
Mm, okay. We'll go with that. Yeah. Actually, you know what? I don't want to take anything away from them. You're right. Actually, you're right.
We all contribute.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I guess I'll have more to say about that probably on my other podcast. It was probably too boring for this show, but it was a good symposium. I want to give them credit. It was great to hear from there were two keynote speakers and a panel, and they were all talking mostly about AI. I mean, and kind of. Actually, I don't remember the name of Phil Bernstein's talk, but it was something about like AI is a mess, but so is architecture, right? And so how is it going to what's going to happen there? I think it's kind of just really interesting to watch how things are playing out, and really deriving value from, but also creating more value for architecture, or the big thinking behind what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But after that, we went to the party, right? That was the opening night party.
We did a lot of like,
was it really a party?
We did a lot of like walking around, touring, because
Yeah. So again, let's talk about non-conference stuff.
Non-conference stuff is we did a drive-by walk, but then kind of went into Mies van der Rohe's Martin Luther King Memorial Library in DC,
yes,
which was right across the street from the opening event, which was at the National Portrait Gallery. But since we were there and we had time to kill, we went in there and looked at both Mies work, but also the more recent renovation, and fantastic renovation. I think they did a great job to extend the life of this mid-century masterwork. But it was interesting to look at the Mies part of it and not the new part is like separate, in my opinion, because I just went to the Farnsworth House, just went to 86880 Lakeshore Drive in Chicago and all these other things on a trip that we haven't talked about, but will in a coming episode for my big like epic Midwest architecture tour. And it's interesting to just see how he grasped a hold of a concept and just kept going with it. Like it was like
building after building
after building after building.
Yeah.
And although I did learn, however, how to spot the really, really Mies detail versus the kind of either like Mies transition to, was it HOK or SOF? That kind of started to pick up the mantle of like that Miesian type approach. But like, how the details started to kind of like change and not become very strict Mies to very Mies, people who worked for Mies, and were trained by Mies, or in how they carry down the mantle of doing something very similar, so very Miesian, but not Mies. And there is a big, I learned on this trip and learned walking next to this and you and me and everybody else who was walking around looking at a building and taking pictures of details and having people look at us like, what is wrong with these people? Typically.
Okay, so this was the second masterwork that I have experienced on the trip, right? Because I landed at Dulles Airport,
yes.
right? And
Yeah.
and so within 24 hours, okay, so compared to where I live, there's nothing, literally nothing here like that.
Yeah.
And I had already been in two incredible places. And I kind of agree with you about like the renovation feeling very separate. It didn't feel out of place.
No.
But it wasn't Mies. It wasn't Mies. And I appreciate that.
Yes.
Like you shouldn't have to be forced. If you get hired to renovate an old building that needs help, you don't need to stick with the principles of the original architect.
Right.
That doesn't seem right either. I don't know. Actually, I've never done a project like that, so I'm sure that could go many different directions.
Yeah.
But it is interesting walking in the front doors of that into the lobby.
Yeah.
that lobby was massive. And it's like, not only is it just massive in square footage, it's massive in height. And it's got the, the grid ceiling with the lights. It's like fluorescent tube lights. They're probably not fluorescent anymore, but I'm like thinking back to when this was in its prime.
Right.
And it was just, it was like the office setting of the pristine cube of a space that you walk into with a little desk in the middle where you were going to go get help to send you to which wing or which floor to go to. But it's just so
big, massive
incredibly
space,
massive.
Little like, things.
Little desk.
Hello.
This is about the building and the space. This is not about the diminutive little people who have to work here.
Exactly. It was, and I remember you made a comment, it's like, man, this thing goes on forever. But what it was is like, you sit and you're in this big, massive double height space and you look to your left, which was kind of out towards the next building, but it, because of the reflections on the double height glass and everything else, it literally looked like it just kind of kept on going.
Yeah. Because,
when you turn to the right from when you entered into the door, it was kind of into the ground floor reading room and stuff like that. And so there was like, light backlit, so it didn't absorb the same, or give you that same kind of reflectance. And so, but it was like wow. But looking left, it was definitely it was kind of this this tells you whether it was intentional or not, but this tells you what that building felt like when it was a true Mies building and not Mies plus. And I'm blanking on who did it. I have a feeling it might be QE, but I don't know, and probably could look it up real quick, but we're in the middle of recording, which you're going to do anyway.
I'm going to do it anyway.
But it was a great space, and then they transformed the roof deck or the rooftop of this, and then they did an addition on the roof and really turned that whole the roof to a rooftop plaza, green roof. It was really nice. Great views of the city.
Real-time update. We've got Mechanu and OTJ Architects are the ones who did the renovation.
Okay. I do remember. I remember when there was a competition for who was going to go after it, and there was a variety of top architects and stuff going after it.
So Mechanu is a Dutch architecture office. And it feels very Scandinavian, I would say. The staircase that we went up.
They did a great job.
There's a lot of steel in that railing system.
Yes.
2 layers of steel guardrail with white oak twisting guardrail. It was really beautiful. And then OTJ is a New Orleans studio. So, not locals. Let's just put it that way.
Not locals.
Not local architects. Yeah.
But,
the roof deck was incredible. Yeah. And it's right across the street from the Steelcase building / dollhouse is how it looked to me, right? Like you're looking over at this glass cube with all of the Steelcase furniture in it, very architectural and like really cool. But it because it was so transparent, it literally felt like a dollhouse. The scale of it, because of the distance it was away from us on the roof, it was like you could play with Steelcase.
And another real-time update,
furniture.
You kept calling it Steelcase and it's Herman Miller.
Oh, I did. Once something's in the brain, It's really hard to get it out.
So for any locals who are like, Steelcase building, what's Steelcase building?
They don't sponsor the show. Yeah. It's okay. We can get their name wrong.
But if you want to.
Yeah, we'll take it.
I can get paid by chairs.
We'll work for furniture.
We'll work for furniture, totally.
Okay, so after that, we went across the street.
Finally, we started our events.
Yes, like the proper event. So we went to the National Portrait Gallery, and so who's the architect responsible for covering the courtyard? Is it Foster?
Yeah, it was Foster. So there you go. Yeah,
okay,
third little masterworks.
Got one right. Yeah, right. I mean, gorgeous space, and so I would say kind of a weird opening party. Okay, so what I have to compare to, and I know you're sour about this, but I went last year to the opening party, and that was at the Exploratorium in San Francisco. And just total free reign, right? Free reign to walk wherever they have food stations and drink stations all over, multi-story, exploratorium with giant fish and birds and this, I mean, if you're aware of this project in San Francisco.
Yeah, I heard about it. I heard about it a lot with, this person who kept sending me pictures of, oh, look how amazing this is. Yeah, I'm not there. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just a poke in the bear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what I'm measuring against.
Yeah.
This was like, okay, so first of all, I think one of the problems here was that somebody who worked there said, none of the galleries are open. You just have access to the courtyard space, which was not true.
Right.
And so it was like, we didn't even go look for quite a while to even see if that was actually the case. We just took their word for it, which was stupid. I mean, it would not make sense for the AIA to rent out just the courtyard space anyway. So I don't know why I believe that, but anyway, that did, I think that kind of soured it right in the beginning. And then when we went and finally looked, we did get to go through a little bit of the gallery space before we called it quits and went to have dinner.
Yeah. I will say that all of the hype that you guys put on the previous year's opening gala versus
really
this
didn't
one was
live up to it, did it?
I was just like, and so I was like, how much did we pay for this? $75?
Yeah,
I was like,
$75.
I'm staying here for 75 minutes. I want $1 a minute of quality time, and then here I am. It's like, you get finger food.
Please.
You got this, and I will refrain from saying my comparison of how the wine tasted, but it wasn't good.
It wasn't?
No.
You got a white wine, right?
Yeah.
It was
remember, I let you taste it. You're like, what the?
It was bad.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
And then, so my rationale, okay, living in DC for the last 14 years before moving, we go to we went to that all the time. The kids used to run in the fountains and all that other stuff, which I wish the fountains were on for this event because they were just really cool. This to kind of have this like really paper thin kind of layer of water and all of that.
I heard about that. Was it friend Michael, I think Ehrman was talking about that. He was just saying like it was really a different take on a fountain. Very architectural. Right. Very architectural. Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, so I just paid for bad food, bad environment, people like it getting really hot in there, right? It started to get like stuffy.
It was, I mean, the weather in DC, again, coming from the West Coast,
okay.
it was sticky.
Let's give everybody a visual. Okay. It's hot outside. It's muggy outside. It's humid outside. People are sweating. These particular people all wear black. So they go inside, they're all sweaty, they're all hot, they're all funky, and
they're all funky.
And here we are now, all in this one contained area that when we first got there, when it was practically empty, was reasonably cool. But then slowly but surely, as it started to fill up, it started to get a little bit stuffy and a little bit funkier.
Funkier. And even funkier.
And so I'm like, okay. And so something that I could do for free, I'm paying for, and I'm not having fun because this guy, I don't know which direction I'm pointing right now, said, oh, last time was fun. Lies.
No, it was true. It was true
last time could have been fun. Yeah. But this was, it was interesting. Yeah. But, we got to see some people. We got to walk around. When we finally realized that the gallery was open, we got to at least walk around the gallery and see some of that. Could have done it the next day for free. Probably could have brought, like went and bought something from some refreshment from the gift shop that was a lot cheaper. And
than $75?
Yes.
Yeah.
And less funky.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be expensive to rent that space out, and they had food and drinks and music and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's like, when you say like these buildings are just open to everybody to walk in for free because that's, as taxpayers, that's what one of the things we pay for.
joy of the
yeah, that
Smithsonian
kind of leaves
institution.
that leaves a weird feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Non-desirable.
it's like, man, the last time I came here, I had a backpack filled with like snacks for the kids and all this other stuff. So be sitting in that. I could have sat in that same place probably a few years earlier with kids running around, eating out of a Ziploc bag of like Cheez-Its and Cheerios and drinking water and had a perfectly good time.
Yeah.
Oh, Cormac, stop it.
Oh, all right. So let's talk about the keynote, the opening keynote. So the next day.
So the next day we wake
right
up and I'm like, wait, so we're going to have some guy talk about happiness? Really?
Well, opening keynote, right? And okay, so talk about judging a book by its cover, right? It's like, okay, so that's all you get.
Yeah.
That's all you get when you're looking at the program. If you don't know who Arthur C. Brooks is, you don't know who Arthur C. Brooks is. And come to find out, author teaches at Stanford Business School. No, is that Harvard? I don't even know. But Harvard Business School. Yeah, he's East Coast.
Yes.
East Coast. And because he was cracking jokes about the West Coasters and how Stanford's trying to steal all the professors from Harvard. And he talked about how, because he said that people in California are happier, but the taxes last forever, right? So that was his. He was dogging on California, but he was basically talking about all we knew is he was going to talk about happiness, and I thought that was kind of a interesting, room to address happiness in. Right.
Yeah.
Our profession, I would not describe it as happy in any way. Right. I'd say we struggle greatly with happiness.
And honestly, you were sitting right next to me. It was a packed room, literally shoulder to shoulder. And I texted you. I was like, I'm wrong.
Yeah, you did. Because you couldn't just look.
I couldn't just look over and say, hey, I'm wrong.
You had to be on your phone.
But I texted you that I was wrong because, oh my God, it was
okay. But before we got to him, let's talk about just a couple. Like there was a lead up to get to him. Right,
sure.
He was not the first thing that happened. And I think it's important to contrast what happened before that, leading up to his, in the presentation style of AIA's leadership.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be specifically about the people who delivered the message. Yeah. It was, I really want to talk about the style in which the message was delivered. And I've lived through this working at a larger firm. You probably have too, which is like there are some people who can talk in front of an audience.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who cannot. And the ones who cannot, who still have to, then need tools to rely on to speak in front of an audience. Oh my goodness.
Teleprompter,
like the teleprompter.
That when they said, when they actually called out, everybody, can you please sit down? I can't
read the teleprompter because everybody's standing up in front of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I literally don't know what to say next.
Right.
Because I can't read the teleprompter.
Yeah.
And it just felt really like, okay, so if you can't speak from the inside, if you can't speak because you don't know because you're so reliant on the tools, that is not a good look for leadership to me. I think so the way that I would describe it is like Disney animatronics on a ride. It was even the body language came across, and I've actually had a communications expert come on my Troxel podcast, and we talked about communication skills of leadership and why it's so important. This was not an example. This was not a good example of that. It was just like you tune out. I tuned out myself. I tuned out immediately because it's not authentic in any way. It's like, and now I will read the words that somebody else wrote for me because those words have been vetted 50 ways from Sunday by a communications team so that we don't say any of the wrong words and they're all in the right order. And it's concise, and nobody's going to go off topic, and the price you pay for that is authenticity, right? It's,
insert after
and connection.
Here.
Yeah, right. There's just no connection with the audience when you're literally reading from a script in front of that audience up on the stage.
I would like to thank you real quick because you said, Disney animatronics, and right now I have Carousel of Progress running through my head. It's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
Yes.
Thanks.
New theme
and
song.
now
New
everybody
theme
else who's listening to this who knows that now has it stuck in their head too. And you're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I bring that up because I wanted to contrast it with the keynote by Arthur C. Brooks, which was freaking amazing.
It was
so well done. It was great storytelling. Yes. It was great pacing. It was totally on topic the entire time. There was comedy thrown in. There was expressiveness. There was motion. And it was, you could just tell, like, okay, number one, he teaches courses, so he's probably very comfortable up in front of people and larger audiences, and he has no problem with any of that. And he's co-authored a book with Oprah. I'm sure he's been on Oprah's show and all. So maybe he's just in a completely different league and has a different kind of a day job, and maybe he's just way more comfortable with it. But with our expectation of what it was going to be and the message that he actually delivered on top of the method in which he delivered it was... It was tremendous. Like, oh, he saved the keynote. He saved the opening event because it was that good. Yeah. It was really, really, really well done. I actually took some notes. Let me see. I'd love to hear what you thought about that while I try to pull up these notes.
Oh, I have to do some filler.
Yeah, you gotta riff right now.
Well, one of the interesting things that I had about it, and I did take notes as well, but some of the things that I did is I did a little bit of audio, and I sent it off to my wife, and
you were kind of just recording it into a text message or something, so that she could hear a piece of it.
I was just like, God, I wish you were here to listen to this, because this is just amazing. How it was literally just amazing, and I think it was, we started talking, and he started talking about happiness, feelings, and I don't know, just
Well, he drew a distinction. He was like, what is, let's define what happiness is. And I know we're not talking about architecture right now, but again, it was kind of interesting to have this be in a room full of unhappy architects.
and honestly, if anybody can just take anything away from that speech and how he was talking about it, and I really think that I have to guess that he's given this before, that we'll need to find a link to, whether it was a TED Talk or whatever else, to put it in there, because it was really, it's just this really interesting conversation about what makes you happy, where should you place your importance, the things that bring you joy, that bring you kind of meaning and purpose, and all of these other things. And if you break down how we approach architecture, you can kind of define your career in the way that he breaks down happiness is all right, it's almost why are you doing this? And what about this alignment of happiness and alignment of what you do is, what part of what you do is part of this kind of overall happiness? And I want to hear your notes, because then I can kind of fill in, because there was those 4 key points that
I mean the definition that he said, it's so in the new book that he's co-authored with Oprah. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. The definition is enjoyment of your life, satisfaction in your accomplishments, and meaning in your life. So enjoyment, none of those things. Enjoyment, happiness is not enjoyment. It's all of these things. It's enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. And so it's an enjoyment is not pleasure seeking. And he started to break down all of these things. And I think what really struck me was when he got to meaning.
Yeah.
Because he said he asks 2 questions. Because I don't want to go through his whole talk, but I think this is the point most worth talking about is, what is meaning? Meaning is coherence, significance, and purpose. And it's 2 questions that you have to be able to answer, which are, why are you alive? Right? Speaking towards the purpose part. And for what would you joyfully give your life for? Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can answer that very quickly, and a lot of people can't answer it at all.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
And that's, I think, what's so interesting. Those are pretty profound personal questions,
Yeah.
right? It's not like anybody was trying to shout out their answer, right? I mean, some people can. They'll immediately mention, their kids or whatever who would you give your life for? I think that certain people definitely know who that would be, and others have no clue who that would be. So to me, I thought that was kind of a really interesting point about meaning, because I think a lot of people are looking for their purpose and they're looking for meaning in their lives, but this kind of helps you define what that actually is for yourself.
Yeah. No, it was tremendous. And yeah, waking up early, trudging into DC, knowing that I'm going to deal with DC traffic. I was already in kind of a little bit of a sour, and, probably thinking somebody's going to tell me to be happy. Don't they know? Don't they know?
You were the poster child for.
Don't they know? Don't they know? They're talking to a bunch of architects.
Don't they know?
And
totally.
and oh my God, it was. I don't know necessarily if transformative is the right way to say it, but it was fantastic. It was eye-opening. It was very much enlightening. I would love for it to be transformative.
It was the right message at the right time.
It was very much the right message.
And it really did kick off the conference in a really good way. I mean, it was a very positive
absolutely
way to start things off.
And, Arthur C. Brooks, definitely look him up. He was amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
And really then that started kind of like rolling into the expo, meeting up with friends, meeting new friends. I had the opportunity, our friend Brett and I had an opportunity when you were, I don't know where you were. We ditched you, I guess, and went to the...
I think it's the other way around.
Or that too, where we went to go to the Lake Flato discussion on design.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which
right.
I am a great admirer of Lake Flato's work, very familiar with a lot of the work that they did in North Florida. So, this kind of like very amazing regionalism that they bring to a very, what almost feels like a making it up as you go along, but is so very sophisticated kind of approach to architecture that I don't know if what I just said is doing their work justice, but I've got a few monographs of theirs because I just really, really like their work.
Same.
And
yeah.
So,
I'm looking
so
for
Brett,
it right now. Yeah.
What's that?
I'm not going to grab it, but I was just saying I have one of their books too, right over here, and I was just looking to see if I could catch a glimpse of it. But yeah.
And so everybody seems to know who is one of Cormac's favorite architects, contemporary architects. And for those of you who don't, because I may not have preached enough about him, I am a great admirer of Brian McKay Lyons, architect out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, and just an amazing body of work. Amazing another regionalist that's the Nova Scotian fishing village type of architecture in a very modern, very contemporary way, and just is inventive as hell on the work that he does. He's very much a kind of a Glenn Burkett, not Glenn. Why am I blanking on Glenn from Australia? Is it Glenn Burkett? Murkett. I said Burkett.
Murkett.
I said Burkett.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So very much kind of in the same vein as like a Glenn Murkett. And so we're sitting there and getting nudged. He's like, hey, there's your boy. And I'm like, what? I'm not paying attention. And he's like, there's Brian McKay Lyons. And I'm like,
you sit up straight.
Like, adjust my tie. Yeah.
Jolt of energy.
Because I have ties. And he walks in with Steve Ehrlich, another, Steve Ehrlich kind of, person. And so I'm like, all right, maybe after this, I'll go up and I'll meet him, introduce him. I sort of briefly met him at the when he was at Auburn, but it was like so quick and it was just like in a flood of other students at the time that it wasn't really one of these that you can really kind of consider a meeting. It was just like quick shake hand, nice work, and then kind of moved on. So I was just like, I want to meet the guy. I'm old enough now. The butterflies will be gone. I'll go meet him. So then the talk kind of finishes up, and then it was switching to Q&A. And then they get up and they leave,
You're like,
but I wanted to meet you, kind of thing, as he walks past me. And I look over and I'm like, well, there it goes. He's like, are we going? Our buddy's like,
Brett is so good
he's
at
like,
this.
so are we going? Are we going after them?
Right.
And I'm like, all right, fine, let's do it. I'm not going to chase these old men down, but I was just going to, once we got out into the corridor out in the conference center, I'll walk up to and I'll meet them. So, but then as we're walking out, a friend of ours stops us. I knew he was in the room, didn't know where he was, but he was in the pathway of like me getting to one of my architectural heroes. And so, but of course, I'm not going to like just, bye, kind of thing. I'd stop and I'd chat with him. But then I'm like, hey, I want to go meet that guy. So get out into the corridor. They're turning the corner. I'm like, do I kind of chase after him a little bit? So I like briskly walked.
Chase him down.
So I kind of like briskly walked, turned the corner and realized they just went to the bathroom. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be that guy.
I'll wait out here.
I'm like, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to like follow them into the bathroom and, say, hey, how you doing? Like anything new these days? He's like, I'm going to the bathroom, So I kind of waited and paid off. It was awesome. I had an opportunity to kind of like re-meet Steve Ehrlich because I did meet him at an MDC. Amazing guy then, very gracious and amazing guy at the AIA Conference. And then, of course, here was my dilemma. I was like, I really like you, Steve. I've got a handful of your monographs on your work as well. And any other day, I would be gushing over talking to you and like your body of work and how I've used your work as precedent studies for some of the things that I've done in the past. But no, because Brian McKay Lyons is standing there. And I'm just like, I don't. So anyway, it's just, and so he was talking to him, and what a great person. I mean, he was just like, it's great to hear that like my work inspired you and all this other stuff, and that you really appreciate my work and everything else. And I kind of told him the story of why, like, for some weird reason, like Nova Scotia speaks to me, and it's not a weird reason because my family immigrated from Ireland to Nova Scotia. We didn't immigrate to America through Ellis Island. In fact, actually my grandfather, so like when my great grandparents immigrated from Ireland to North America, it was to Canada. My grandfather was born in Canada. So we were Canadians before we were Americans and lived in Halifax. And my grandfather was born not too far from where Brian McKay Lyons works, and told him that story. He's just, it's great. He's like, and then said, it's always been a bucket list to come up there and kind of just visit the area, reconnect with my roots, if that's a odd way of putting it, but reconnecting with my roots, and then just going and checking out your work. He's like, oh, if you are, please look me up and I'll take you around, show you around, like show you all these things, and even invited me to come out to the farm. And I'm like,
nice. That's awesome.
And then I look over and literally I look over right when you said, come out and you can come visit the farm. I look over at Brett and Ken, and I was just like, see you guys later. I'm done with the convention. I'm going to the farm. And, Steve
nice.
and Brian were just like chuckling. Because when I said, the first time I had actually met you, Brian, was like, you were a visiting professor at Auburn. He's like, oh my God, Auburn. That was so long ago. And I'm like, grab my beard and I'm like, hence the gray hairs. And Steve Ehrlich kind of like did one of these things. He goes, yeah, it happens to us all. Because he's like stark white hair. I was just like, Say, this is cool. I'm having a little bit of I'm having a moment here. And so really from that point on, I was just like, this this is going to be a good, I don't care what else goes on in the event. I don't care if I do anything else. My AI convention was made.
Nice. I think you just called it an AI convention.
No, AIA.
Which it might have
AIA.
been. It might have been. Okay.
So.
A real convention. Yeah, cool.
I felt artificial at that time. So I was like, pinch me.
Yeah. Right.
I'm meeting this guy who does really, really good work. It was funny as there was this TV show, I believe on Netflix. It was like World's Most Amazing Houses or something like that, where these, people, this team of a realtor and an architect visit all of these different houses throughout the world, like these amazing homes. And one of them was Brian McKayline's two-hall house. And the architect was, a big fan of Brian McKayline. So he was just like, I hope this isn't one of the cases of don't meet your heroes because they'll let you down kind of thing. And it wasn't, because he was just like gushing over how amazing this thing was. And I was just like, I hope it's not one of these things where I go up and I try to meet this guy and he's just like, don't talk to me, peasant. He wasn't. He's like, who are you? Why are you talking to me? Leave me alone. I mean, they were nice. They were gracious. They were very, very cool dudes. That
like real people.
They were real people. Yeah. Architects can be real people.
What happened after that? I don't even remember.
I don't remember.
I know we spent some time on the expo floor,
we did.
But I guess your highlight already happened, so you were just kind of floating around.
Actually, what was good is we, kind of met up with people like when the company we just recently had the structures company, Scott from Structures, on the show, and we kind of met up with like the parent company of all of that and met some pretty good people about like what's going on in their industry, and they invited us to dinner. Really, really nice dinner too. Right. That you had to ditch out on because
I had another dinner.
Another dinner.
Yeah. Right. It was nice. Like I spent most of my time on the expo hall with the technology companies because of the work that I do. Yeah. But it was really great to connect with Timber Tech. I think that was the booth that we spent probably the most time at.
Well,
that was not technology, but there was quite a few booths giving away socks this year. Got quite the sock collection this year.
I should have had my socks ready.
Nobody wants to see your feet.
No, not have them on. Just hold them up and say, look at my... No. Look, I need to do laundry.
Very flashy I mean, I think that's a pretty good idea.
You know what?
I don't know. SketchUp's been doing it forever, but architects do like their
architects like
socks,
their funky socks.
So.
And,
funky socks.
Vectorworks, they brought out a really good one. Autodesk, you need to step your game up. Nobody likes lemon lime.
They definitely do.
Those were boring.
Right. You got the the SketchUp socks were good.
SketchUp socks were good.
Great. The Slantis
socks were
good.
There were a few that I missed that I saw some of them. Where'd you get those? But
who knew you could walk away from the AIA conference with like $50 in socks?
I didn't need to do any sock shopping. No. These are like $25 a pair, like single pair of socks, man.
That's ridiculous.
Funny enough, I was just in Target looking at just like funky socks, and they were like $22 a pop. I'm like, why?
Well, that's crazy. Who spends that kind of money on socks?
Yeah. I don't, because I get them all for free at an AIA conference.
Right.
Which was just great. Yeah.
So after the expo hall, there were various dinners and things going on, and there was various meetups and things happening with a lot of different people that we've known forever. I think that's one of the coolest things, and we've definitely talked about that in the past, about going to a conference like this. Really, the reason is to go to meet up with the people who you've been hanging out with, but you don't get to see except for once or twice a year at a show like this. So that's the real reason to go. It's not to get CEUs, and it's not to sit in any of these booths. And it's to talk. Yeah, you definitely don't need any. It's definitely to meet with your people and get some photos with people and go see architecture with people and hang out. It was very cool. And the next day was the day that we skipped out and went and looked at some incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
we're in Washington D.C. I
There
mean,
was all of these
there's a
architectural
couple
tours,
things.
and by the time we got the
Right.
opportunity to sign up for them, they were all sold out. And so while we were sitting there in the pre-happiness keynote, our friend was just like, "There's only one building that I really want to see," and look it up and find out that of all of the days that we were in town, of all of the times and everything
Right.
else, everything was completely booked up except for noon on the next day for 3 people, and that's all we were looking for. So it was just like absolute fortuitous luck that I pull up
Right.
the app to go to the National Museum of African American National Museum of History and Culture, and I don't know if I got the name right, but
It's a long
it's a
name.
long name.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
And we scored the last 3 tickets. Again, see, getting you guys all these free tickets and stuff, and nobody bought me anything from the gift shop. I still don't understand why. Like, I mean, sure, they were free tickets, but still, you could have, you know, tipped me or something. I mean, something. Come on.
They
All
were
of this,
free tickets, but yeah, you did.
all this,
You did the effort.
the gas to get you there wasn't free. But um, anyway, so we go there and lucky into some pretty good parking, really, really close. Get to do a little bit of walk on the mall, right on up to the Washington, Monument, on into the museum, just in time, so we didn't have to like dilly dally. I mean, we literally just got there right in time to like walk right on in, get out of the stifling hot swamp air, and
Yep.
and I want to, because of somebody who's been there a lot, I'm curious what your impression of the museum was. Because
I honestly, okay, so I've been to quite a few museums over the years, over the decades in Washington, D.C., but it's been a while since I've been in one. This building is absolutely incredible. I cannot believe how much it has going on and how clean and detailed it came out, because I mean, it kind of has to, it seems like, in its location and of its stature and who was involved with the design and the execution of all that, right? It is so well done. I mean, that to me, like, I took a lot of pictures from afar, but I could have just as easily taken pictures up close. And I was paying attention to those things, like just the way that steel spiral stair goes up. There's no apparent supporting structure, and it's got these, half-inch thick steel panels that wrap it with these half-inch gaps between the steel panels. The precision is incredible. Like, and that to me is, we don't get to see that working on K-12 projects ever, right? But the level of execution in the actual build by the contractor is incredible. So there's obviously the detailing to get it to that point and figure it all out, but then there's the actual materials and the assemblies and the way that they were executed is another level. Like, you just don't get to experience things like that very often. And I have no idea what the budget was on that project and how far over budget, I assume, just because architecture. But it's like, though, the budget is just incomprehensible to me as a when I was practicing architecture. I can't even imagine what that building ended up at, but that's what it pays for. Like, this is what you get. And this building gets so much traffic. There were, they put you in time slots and tickets so that they can maintain the correct capacity for the building. There were a lot of people there, and this building sees that many people most of the time, every single day, right? And for it to, so it's just, it's so durable. It is so well done. It's just one of those things where it's like, you can't even tell that it gets that much traffic, because it doesn't really it's not wearing out. I know it's not that old, but it's of the caliber of the other monuments and buildings that we see in Washington, D.C., but it's a new addition, and there's way more materiality in this building than there are in many of the other ones. And to me, I mean, the material choices, the light, the skin, the core, the transition of space. And like, I think this is a building you can easily get disoriented in because there's so many twists and turns along the experiential path from the bottom to the top. You know, we decided to go down to the bottom and then work our way up through the multiple floors, and there's escalators and there's ramps and they're curving and turning and doing this and that. And then there's some, I kept thinking about it in section and how complex it is in section. Like those, you know, they weren't closed in theaters as we were going up the ramp, and you're kind of like moving laterally and vertically, and then you get another theater, and then there's another theater, and they're showing stuff up on the walls, and they're using projection and lighting. And we had a conversation about the lighting alone, right? And just how the lighting design in this museum is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Just so well done. I don't know. I could go on and on and on and on. There was just so many things in that contemplative garden, the waterfall through the Oculus, and like that space that's underneath the plaza in front of the building.
And how
there's so many things like that experientially that I just were very, very meaningful and so well done.
That space really was when you look at when you look at the museum, and it doesn't really look as big as it actually is because there's a lot that's underground. Right.
It doesn't. I would have never expected it to feel that expansive.
Exactly. Right.
Okay, so here's an analogy that just came to mind. It's like going into an IKEA, where it's like this won't take long. We'll be in and out, and then before you know it, it's a time warp, and it took you 4 hours to get through it.
Where did time go?
That's what this is like, except way nicer.
Exactly. Wait, but you can't get meatballs there.
There were no meatballs. Man, like what a highlight. What an absolute architectural treat to visit that. And I know like there was a model there that we got to see, and there was some photos like in the design process and some sketches, but you know, seeing Phil Freelon and David Adjaye kind of like, you know,
doing their thing,
working, you know, maybe it was a photo op, but doing their thing. I mean, that I can't even imagine how much effort went into creating a building.
But
like
hopefully how much fun too.
Capital A architecture. Yeah.
And so then
it would have been like, I can't even imagine that design process and be like, we're going to do what? You mean we get to do what?
Yeah.
And like just feeling like you're getting away with stuff because it's that incredible.
Yeah, it was. Right. So then the one of our fan favorite museums on the mall is the Air and Space Museum. However, the Air and Space Museum on the mall, it's under a major renovation. It was still open, but it was greatly diminished in the exhibits that were going on, the wings that were closed and things like that. And you're like, oh, I really, I kind of want to go there. I'm like, no, you want to go.
Well, you asked me earlier because Brett said, I only want to see the one thing. And I'm like, I want to see two things. I want to see the African American History Culture Museum, and I want to go to the Air and Space Museum.
And I'm like, well, we're going to go to the other one. And you're like, other one?
I was like, there's another one? What are you talking about? There's more than one Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C.?
They're both the same Air and Space Museum, just in two locations. Always have been, or at least like one, because the collection is so vast. Obviously, the one on the mall, you can't contain everything there. And so we made the drive out to right outside of Dulles Airport, is the Udvar Hazy wing of the Air and Space Museum. And because of the way that it's laid out, and again, I was, because it's my favorite museum to go to take the kids there and all of that other stuff. And I love both Air and Space Museums, but there was just something about the one out in Virginia that I was like, you guys have got to see this one. It was like the way that they staged it, the way that they kind of presented this very specific, they curated this view, this kind of procession. Once you come in the front doors, there's this procession. You see, like, you start to feel this excitement of like what you see. And as you get closer, the excitement just keeps unfolding, more stuff to keep looking at. And it's just like, and that to me is always the thing. And so when you said you want to see the Air and Space Museum, and me knowing some of your favorite airplanes, that I was excited to kind of like just say, all right, get at it, man. And it paid off.
It paid off. It delivered. I mean, and I think what's so interesting about that is like completely different style of
Yeah.
museum,
Yeah.
right? Than what we had just experienced at the African American History Museum. And it was like, it's just like a
Yeah.
giant hangar, right? And so now it becomes all about, okay, so how do you create an experience in just like one big space, right? Very different, like
Hmm.
sectionally, very little you can do
Right.
sectionally. Like there's no you go down into this dark room and then it blows up into this. No, it's just like one giant hangar. And what they were able to do with this is still like it makes for a great experience, to your point about the way that it unveils some of my favorite things to look at in the whole
Right.
world, right?
Right.
But the way that they bring you in on the upper level and obscure the view so that when you get to the precipice of the mezzanine, it just is like boom, and it's laid out in front of you right down the middle on this central axis that goes back to the space
Right.
shuttle
Yeah.
Discovery, right, all the way in the back, and that's kind of what's drawing
Exactly.
you
You're
in,
like,
and I like how you kind of you brought that up, right? It's like you see this thing down there and it's white and it's bright and it's like lit, and because your eye is drawn to it with like this forced
mhm.
perspective of the building, but also just the railings and the walkways and everything and the color, it definitely it just prioritizes your
Right.
attention. That okay, that's where I'm supposed to go, right? And this is something that architecture does that normal buildings
Right.
don't do, right? They you take all this into account and it sucks you in, and then you get to this, you didn't even know that there was going to be a lower level first time
Right.
visitor, right? And it's just like boom, there's the SR-71
It's like,
Blackbird below, and it's
hey,
lined up
Evan, how you doing?
perfectly on axis
Yeah.
with, yeah, hi, I was waiting for you. Right.
Exactly. But it's also framed diagonally by two of the most pivotal aircraft of World War II, the U Corsair and the P-51 Mustang. The
Right.
main,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
kind of like in dogfight kind
exactly.
of angle
Main
coming
aircraft
in,
of the Navy,
and
main aircraft of the Army
yes,
and, Air Corps. And so like you sort of see them that, and they frame out the view of the shuttle. And so but you're
in the
so
background.
focused on the shuttle as you're walking by, you don't really pay attention to them. But as you're getting closer, you start to see them get closer to you. Then, that's when
Right.
then you start to realize, oh, wait, there's a lower level. And that lower level opens up. And then now you're in this like axial view of these World War II aircraft, SR-71 and the shuttle. And then as you're standing there, that's when you start to see the breadth of this whole entire space. You've got all of like the
Yep.
Cold
That's
War.
when your peripheral
Yeah.
vision kicks in and you look left and you look right, and it just opens up in both directions. Then you've got the Enola Gay
Right.
there, and oh my gosh, just you've got fighter planes, and yeah. And it's like, "Oh, we're going to be here
Yeah,
for a while."
exactly.
Like
Like so this is what we're doing today because we're not doing anything else.
yeah, I mean,
Oh,
that was absolutely incredible to see all that basically under one
yeah.
big
Yeah.
roof. And it is neat how they have these kind of different levels so you can experience these from other angles than just the
Yeah. Yeah.
ground, right? Like what's neat is you get the ground level scale
Mhm.
experience of these airplanes, but then they also have these stairs and ramps and overlooks so you can see them from all the angles you want to see them from, because there's just so many different things to look at.
Catwalks
Super
that
cool.
you're eye to eye with. You see when you're at ground level and
Right.
you're looking up and you see these aircraft hanging from the structure and you're like, oh, those are great. But then there's like catwalks that bring you up and you're
Yeah.
staring eye to eye with them and you're like, oh, that's how big they really are. And then you're seeing all of these different things from multiple different perspectives all the way throughout, from the ground level, from up above, looking down at them. I mean, it's a well done for such a very simple building and such a very simple move between the exhibit designers and the architects. It's just very well done, very simply curated, but very impactfully curated museum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, yeah,
And then in the back
yeah,
for
in the back.
for the nerds, the workshop. Oh my gosh. Just
Ah,
so cool to see the things they're working on and the process, at the point at which in the timeline of each one of those projects they're on. You can just, like, it's just there to see. And you're up in this bird's eye view looking into the restoration area, the actual workshop. And there's a wood shop and a steel shop, and they've got all these projects laid out, and there's fuselage and wings, and they're stacked on racks, and all the tools are out. And I just really appreciate that they actually show that part of it, because I imagine that they don't have that in the Smithsonian Air and Space on the mall. Maybe they do, but I mean, they're out by an airport. They've got this giant expanse of a museum, and they've got this huge shop, and then they've got, I'm sure, a lot more collection storage and stuff that you don't even see as another part of the building. So
you're lucky that you're talking to me in the firm who is doing all of their collection storage. Has some.
I'm going to need to see those drawings. Yeah.
No, you're not. But
no, I'm sure the drawings are pretty boring because the drawings probably don't have all the planes in them. Anyway, that's what I really want to see.
But it is kind of exciting to just kind of like, be able to like work on it and stuff. And I don't know if it takes the little bit of the luster off of it when you're like working on these projects, but since I'm not working on them, the luster's still there. I love that place.
Yeah, right.
And then the whole time,
cool.
You're sitting there and there's a certain perspective where you can see outside and you can kind of like look beyond and you can see Dulles sitting there. So you see the Saarinen, and it's just this nice little collection of these amazing artifacts that have had pivotal roles in human history, or at least contemporary human history,
right,
to this beautiful piece of work off in the distance. And it was just another bit of framing as well.
So cool. That was the highlight for me that day, was getting away from the conference.
Yeah.
And
what's your favorite part of the conference? Getting away from it?
Being a tourist. Yeah. I mean, and that really speaks to kind of the benefit of location of these conferences and getting to see a different thing in the different places. But some are better than others by far, right? So I don't get the chance to go to DC very often, so I felt like this was great. And then next year it's going to be in Boston, which I've never been to Boston ever. So that might be worth making a trip for as well.
Yeah, we've been a couple of times, but I am going to look forward to a lot of like guided tours and things like that. My wife said she wants to film. Like, all right.
Oh, nice.
You don't know what you're getting into. You don't know what you're getting into, but okay.
Yeah.
Come on.
Cool. Nice. Well, was there anything we missed?
I'm sure there was. And sorry to those who we did miss. I mean, we talked to a lot of people on the floor. We met up with a lot of friends. Didn't get a chance to meet up with other friends because they were just as equally busy and shuffling around and everything else as well. Because it seemed to me like it was a really, really busy, like we were always doing something. Like we never really had time.
Well, that's the thing, right? Everything is competing for a very limited time slot, right? And so I feel like this might sound stupid, but it's like intuitively, which one do I want to go to right now? Because there are so many options, right? And so there's very much just like, well, let's just see where the wind blows and we'll figure it out as we go, because there are way too many options. And not to try to make it sound like it's a popularity contest at all. It's not. Like it's just like there's literally too many things going on all the time, and you just have to pick one and go to it. And it may not be the right one, but I feel like we did pretty well.
And what's funny is like, because I never really think of like all of the architecturally significant buildings in DC, because in a way they're all architecturally significant buildings or historically significant buildings.
There's so many.
Or, it's just like, hey, let's ditch all of this and go on the John Wilkes Booth Trail. We'll start at Ford Theater, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do that. And then there's like all of that stuff that you could do. Or there's, it's like, hey, right down the road is a Wright House, and next to that is Mount Vernon. Why don't we go do that? All of this stuff was so close. So there's...
Or the battlefields. Or there's...
Or me, like I wanted to get you out to the Glenstone Museum, because you've heard me rave on about that too,
I've heard you go on
and on and
about
on,
that
and
one.
it's well worth it. But there was a lot of other things that were well worth it too. And so I think overall though, I had quite a action-packed, exciting, and very, very good conference. I mean, there's
Yeah.
there was a lot more that I could have done, but I don't think that I would have been able to like mentally survive it all because it was just like it was exhausting.
Or physically. Or physically either. I mean, it's just. I mean,
Yeah,
we did like 12,000 steps a day, and you're still sitting around a lot in a car, and so just
yeah,
the amount of walking and that you're doing is just. I mean, bring the comfy
yeah.
shoes
This is what I
always.
always tell people when they come and like they go and visit DC is just like, oh, what can I see? It's like strap yourself in
You're
because
not
there.
going to fit that
Yeah, I was
much
gonna
in.
say strap yourself in because there is so much that you can see. Here's
There's,
it's like
yeah,
yeah.
multiple visits, multiple
Yeah. It's like
weeks.
Disney.
Yeah,
It's like you don't do
for
all of
sure.
Disney in one day because that's just insane. I mean, you could, but
Yeah,
did you really enjoy it? Take your time, slow down, take a deep breath.
yeah.
Hopefully not walk past a
Well, I
anyway, I'll leave that one.
was gonna say I put up a few posts on Instagram, so I'll put a link to those in
Yeah.
the show notes. But just of some of the things that we talked about
And I
today.
haven't I
But it
haven't
was
yet, but I think once we start, posting this episode, I'll have stuff up. Um I've got so many photos on my phone and camera to curate through for the trip that I took just before the AIA convention and then the trip, and then the AIA
we got to talk about
convention.
that.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we'll
We got to talk
we'll
about
talk
that.
about that.
And public thank you to Cormac Thalen for his amazing tour guide. And he just, as always, you just do the thing.
It,
You do the thing. You know the
uh,
places. You know where to go. You know how to do it. It
I
was
honestly
incredible.
enjoy doing
So
that. But now I need to take all of that money that you guys, will give me and go out and get one of those little duck buses.
you
You
got,
do the
you got to hold
little
out the
duck
hat.
tours.
Do the collections. Do the duck
But
tours.
I'll do a coast to coast duck tour.
Well, cheers, man. I appreciate it. You're an excellent tour guide, especially in your old stomping
Yep.
grounds. So it was really fun.
It's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.